progress called What Paradise, or Making Presumptions About Who's in Need of Salvation. Up until last fall, I served a 10-year voluntary exile in rural northern New Mexico. I returned to the Bay Area in October and began in earnest in this project. The everyone knows part of it is everyone thinks right away when they hear you're from New Mexico, you hear about the land of enchantment. And whenever there's that glowing report, there's the other side, which is kind of what I write about. First, maybe you hear the bear. A snuffle, some branches snapping. You can ignore it. It's the wind. There's a lot of that this time of the year, what with winter moving in. And what of the branches? Well, things break. The garbage strewn about, the huge, huge berry-filled scat. You can even logic your way out of that one. But then comes one night. You're dragging things in from the car or looking for the cat. Coyotes, one more thing to worry about. You fumble for the flashlight. It has fallen off the keychain. You blink and adjust to your night vision. Then, when you're almost to the door, on a wave of air, it's breath. Thick, hot, and garbagey. And all you can do is picture what the claw marks on your back will look like. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Okay, but what if the neighbor's a known scumbag and raging alcoholic, and your friend from Los Angeles comes to stay and tells you she's in love, or at least lost, and it turns out it's this guy? What if you're out of town and she stays in your house, but it turns out it's also him and some of his caveman friends, and they break the tile counter and a table and somehow manage to leave red wine stains on the wall, which is adobe for Christ's sake, not just something you paint over. What if she says, I think he's seeing someone else, and you have no idea, but you could easily confirm this, ending the whole nonsense, but you don't. And you also don't tell her that he's a dealer, because he's never been convicted. Because he can afford a great attorney, who happens to be your friend Gary, who tells you, yeah, he's guilty as shit. But you don't pass this on, because you're supposed to believe he's innocent until proven guilty. Plus, she's running around town glowing, really glowing, and telling strangers she's in love. What then? Displaced. Before me, backlit by the setting sun, stood a very large dog. This was on the last hill of a bike ride, the kind where you allow your mind to drift sideways, even in an area known for roaming packs of strays. This beast could have been either friend or foe. Issues of temperament aside, it was huge. As I got closer, the odd shape of his head struck me, all elephantine ears and blocky snout. What a peculiar dog, I thought, trying to conjure names of breeds that might cast such a silhouette. Doberman, Great Dane, German Shepherd. Once the trees cut the sun's glare, I could see those were not ears. I was heading towards a bighorn. Not one for being bored, I turned the other direction. Later, I was told that if you're really sweaty, those rams will come right up and lick your arm for the salt, and that their tongues are like damp 80 grit sandpaper. This imperfect day. When I got to Philip, his eyes were closed. One ski was off, and the other was twisted impossibly inward. He was tipped into the well of a tree, his angles odd and uncomfortable looking. I yelled at him, and he mumbled about the remaining ski, which I released and then straightened his leg. I had to climb over him to do this, something that probably wasn't proper protocol. His girlfriend, the one of us that knows about anything medical, was post-holing her way back up the hill. The snow was so deep and heavy that she had to put her skis back on to make the slow and strenuous hike. Talk to him, ask him questions, scream at him were some of the things she yelled to me. I talked, I screamed, I asked. No, you can't take a nap was the thing I yelled the most. I recounted for him the day we first met and the bocce game at my house and the unfunny comedy group we'd seen the night before. He told me his hand was broken, maybe his shoulder, and that he wanted to get up. He said the ringing in his head was so loud, and could I speak up? I prayed that his helmet had worked, and bellowed some more. I knew we were 15 minutes by sled to a doctor, 1 hour down an icy and twisted road to an ill-equipped hospital, yet another hour by airlift to a trauma unit. I also knew, as the skier behind him, I'd be asked to recount what happened, which part of his now crumpled body hit the tree, what the sound was like, and with what velocity he was traveling. Sometimes a stunner of a day brings with it a tip of a head, a euphoria so distracting that nothing remains but the thump of a helmet colliding with the trunk of a dead tree. That's all I had, standing hip deep in the fresh, begging my friend to please, please just open your eyes. Vanished. When Heidi went missing, we followed the search online, since the paper comes out but once a week. Her purse and dog remained safe at home, but her car was parked at a famous overlook. We all pictured the bridge at the gorge, its elevation etched into the guardrail at the midpoint, considered what it might be like to fall or swan dive or even float away. And finally, this last piece is called Plain Person. I was behind a truck filled with furniture and parts of things that were about 2% away from being cracked. Piled high in the back of the pickup, the sides were bolstered by planks and chicken wire. It had no brake lights or side mirrors, and the driver used his arm for turn signals. It was too wide for me to pass, but as I suffered janky truck-specific road rage, I did anyway, spraying gravel from the corduroyed edge. An old man was driving, and a younger guy, maybe his son, was in the passenger seat. A woman sat between them, staring straight ahead. Her jaw locked, she was scared or mad, or so I imagined. A mind wanders on a single-lane road going north. Some 10 minutes later, I hit the only intersection on that entire stretch and pulled into the gas station, knowing there wouldn't be another for hours. The New Mexico-Colorado border. You can get miles and miles of nothing if you don't watch out. The place smelled like bleach and was barely stocked. It seemed like they had changed owners. New pegboard, hand-printed signs. The truck pulled into the station while I waited for the restroom. The older man delivered the woman to the line. She was dressed the plain people way. Brown ankle-length skirt, a man's shirt, hair pulled back tight under a bonnet. "I'll meet you right here when you get out," the old man said with his lip next to her ear. She flinched and stared down at her huge boots with no socks, the laces pieced together from different bits. When he let go of her elbow, there were red marks left by his fingertips. She could have been 15 or 30. I tried to make eye contact. When I did this, her neck mottled red. I wanted to ask if she was okay, even though I knew nothing about her, whether she'd been forced to marry the old man. I was just making things up. One makes presumptions about who's in need of salvation. I thought about saying, "Come with me, I'll rescue you." Instead, I mumbled something about snow or the road or whatever you say to people so that you can feel like a human. She said nothing, but the edges of her mouth tipped upward, or maybe just shifted. When I came out of the bathroom, I held the door for her, and our eyes met for a microsecond. The younger man had come to stand by her. I got an awful coffee in a styrofoam cup, fussed with creamer packets. It is no accident that I did not see which way the truck went. Thank you.